Hi there, everyone. This is Sarah Sol Edjida, and I'm here with my husband.
Joshua Edjida.
And I wanted to have a little conversation with Joshua about the ways in which our work are harmonious with each other. You're a
Complementary.
complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am an ancestral healer and animal communicator. I practice the shamanic healing arts. And how would you describe yourself, Joshua?
I am a filmmaker and creator of the LUCID filmmaking system. And I do like a process called the quantum theater, which is transformational role playing for learning how to embody more of ourselves in our nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And the only other piece I'd add to that is you're creator of the Blind Seers story world.
And the creator of the Blind Seer story world.
Yeah, which I'm excited to talk about in just a few moments. But the what I want to do is talk with you about the importance of story. Why are stories important to us as humans? Why and how is the creation of story deeply, deeply impactful in our lives? And we both come at this from different, but as you were saying, complementary angles. So in my work as an ancestral healer, what I'm looking at with my clients is the story of their family, this literally the story of their lives, what their current life is like, what their parents' lives were like, their grandparents, what is the experience, the collective experience that comes through their ancestral rivers and is landing in their bodies, like in this particular life. And so when we perform different ancestral healing techniques in the context of the session, what people are doing is recreating the story of their current life and the story of their family and their ancestry. Mm-hmm. And I don't always use that language when I'm working with clients, because when I'm with clients, I'm tending to different energetic entanglements like cords and curses. I'm tending to soul loss and power loss. I'm tending to unwell death, which is when someone has passed on, but they haven't fully completed their death process into whatever the next realm is. And so there's those lingering feelings of unfinished business. Mm-hmm. You know, these are just a handful of examples to give you about how we can experience spiritual and energetic unwellness in our life mm-hmm. and in our ancestral lines, our ancestral rivers. And so I tend to that spiritual and energetic unwellness in the context of the session. And I don't always use this language, like I was saying with clients, but I'm very aware that what we're doing is literally rewriting the story of mm-hmm. their life mm-hmm. and rewriting the story of their ancestry.
Yeah. And I'll just add, like, the things that she just talked about, it could sound like it's kind of out there, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. But if you saw, like, you know, in the story world I'm creating, which is the Blind Seers, and it's a village of sorcerers, if sorcerers were talking about this in a movie, it made perfect sense, right? Because it's a story. But when you hear an individual talking about it, it can like raise some red flags, like, what? Like, she crazy?
Yeah, right. Because we're recording this video in the context of what I would call ordinary reality.
Yeah, which doesn't have the story context, so it can sound like, is this factual? But the point of this video is it doesn't actually matter, because mm-hmm. story is story. You know, some stories are, you know, quote true, some stories are quote fictional, but it's a story still, either way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's really the point of what we're here to discuss.
Right. Oh, so where to begin? There's something that feels really important just to jump in with right off the bat about the creation of our own realities. And when we are creating a story, telling a story, shaping our life, either in this ordinary reality or in the context of a story world, a non-ordinary reality. In both of those situations, we are embodying our power as creator. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that's the heart of the matter. Like that is what I'm really doing with my clients, is I'm supporting them to step fully into their power so that no matter what arises in their life, they know themselves to have the agency and the capacity and the will and the intent to engage with it in their lives. And so we do that in actual, their actual ordinary life. But they develop that skill through non-ordinary means, like through the shamanic journeying techniques, through different psychic waters that we travel through. And then that's where I'm going to hand this off to you. The story world is like a safe, experimental place where it's the exact same thing. An individual is enacting a particular storyline and they recognize it as fantasy, but is it? Because they're actually working through lessons and learnings that are going to be brought back home into their body after viewing the movie, for example.
Yeah. Like when I watched The Matrix, when it came out in theaters, it's a fictional movie, but it affected me in real life, right? So there was elements of it that were real enough that I saw something different, I felt something different, and it had a real impact on me, even though it's a fictional story, right?
Exactly. And we all have all of us have so many examples like that. I read this book that I really loved. It had a huge impact on my life. I watched this movie that I really loved. It had a huge impact on my life. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we actually we say, but it's not real, but it's fantasy. But do you see how we're contradicting ourselves? Because we're simultaneously saying that this movie had a deep impact on us. And then it's like we're undercutting ourselves or taking the rug out from underneath our feet. And we're like, no, but actually it's not real. And that's another big message that I think both of us have in our work that we do separately and also the work that we do together, is what you were saying earlier about it does not matter if it's ordinary reality or non-ordinary reality. It doesn't matter if it's fiction or if it's nonfiction. These are real. Like story is real in that it has a real and direct impact in how we perceive and create our reality.
Yeah. And something that's coming to mind that feels really useful is to understand our brains are wired for ritual.
Yeah.
And story is a ritual, right? So if I go to Disneyland and you're greeted by the mouse and the duck and whatever, and then you go on the roller coasters, and at the end of the day, there's fireworks, right? So the fireworks, like in, quote, reality, is like burning chemicals, right? Like there was no, like, it was a manufactured celebration, right? But it's still a celebration. And so it creates this like landmark of the day, of the story of going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Right. So because we're wired for ritual, it's about the experience that we have, not whether it was real or not. People get really hung up on like what's real and what's not. And I want to make a point about that, which is in our LUCID system, we have 9 storytelling styles, which are based on the 9 Enneagram types. And each of the Enneagram types, once you know what yours is, you only have one in your whole life. This is how your nervous system is formed. This is what your subconscious mind is fixated on. It identifies, here's your primary fear. and here's your primary desire. It really simplifies things. It's like a massive shortcut. And so another way of saying that is there's 9 different stories people see the world through. You know, there's a book on the Enneagram, 9 different lenses on reality. So if we all live in one of 9 different stories, just right off the bat, it really makes it clear that everybody is already in a story, right? We have already subconscious stories that are fueling
our ordinary reality.
Which we think is ordinary, but it's already tinted.
It's already a story.
It's already a story,
Great
right?
point. Yeah.
So the point of this work is to use stories for a purpose intentionally, because we're already using one unconsciously, unintentionally.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I just wanted to also mention that, you know, when I went to film school, we learned this terminology. When you're writing, when someone watches a film, they're undergoing suspension of disbelief, right? So normally if I would say, you know, I can do magic, that might be something that would invoke disbelief from someone. But if it's in a movie and it's like, okay, here's a village of sorcerers, they will suspend their disbelief because they know they have this ritual, they have this container, and within the right ritual, suspension of disbelief becomes easier.
Yep. Oh, and see, it's exactly the same process as when I'm working with a client one-on-one, or I'm in a group setting and I'm facilitating what's called a shamanic journey, where I'm using the sound supports of rattles and drums to distract the conscious thinking mind just enough to allow, like, the consciousness to relax and expand. And I never used that term before in the shamanic healing context, but it's exactly the same thing. There's a temporary suspension of belief. Disbelief, suspension of disbelief in the mind and the body of the client. And that allows their active imagination to just turn on and we really turn up the dial. And they have a quote unquote shamanic experience where it's like you're dreaming, but you're awake and you're fully participating. It's a lucid dream, except you're awake.
Yeah. And so this is where this lucid dream is where the shift happens. This is where the transformation happens.
Yeah.
And so that's just to underscore transformation doesn't happen in the rational mind, right? If we're stuck in our rational minds, our thinking minds that most of us think this is me, it makes transformation impossible. So the disbelief happens in the rational mind, and suspending that so we can do deeper facilitation and storytelling and work, that's the lucid dreaming space that we're talking about.
And that's exactly where the healing and the transformation occurs.
Yeah.
Exactly, because we're having access to a much more expanded understanding of reality and sense of self. And so that's an infinitely creative space that we can draw upon to then bring home into our bodies and bring home into our day-to-day life. And that's literally how we change our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And a film is a lucid dream created by a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's scripted, it's recorded. You know, at this point in our technology, we don't have any agency over where it's going, you know, but it's a lucid dream. Your body sees humans moving and speaking. Your body interprets it as this is really happening, right? You're sucked into the story, right? And even the cuts that happen in a film are cuts that could happen in a lucid dream. You know, you could be in a lucid dream walking through a building and then suddenly you're in a parking lot. It's a cut.
Yeah, it's dream space. You can do anything. And then you can go flying and then, anything. Yeah. There's one other piece I want to talk with you about a little bit more, and that's this piece around enjoyment and pleasure and play. And this is something that, again, I engage with and I come up, it's an experience that arises over and over and over again in my work with clients, is that because the shamanic journeying process is so enjoyable and playful, it can be terrifying and it can be challenging. However, it's generally understood as play.
And it can be both at the same time.
Dream, exactly.
It can be playful and also challenging and disturbing, but it's like there's this essence of like agency. That's the play.
Yeah, and it's because they've for a period of time have stepped outside of their rational analytical mind that has to have reality be a certain way, and if it's not, then that's dangerous.
Yeah, like if this happens, I should be afraid.
Right.
That's what's suspended.
That's what's suspended. And so then what that means is that we're able to tend to really frickin' heavy stuff, traumas, different, all kinds of different pain and trauma and difficult experiences and deep, deep, deep fears and insecurities, lack of self-worth, self-hatred, all of these topics.
And at different levels too, individual, family, and then collectively.
Collective, subconscious, exactly. Yeah. So we're able to engage with all of those really challenging, often very painful experiences. And we engage with them directly, but through this architecture of play and imagination. And so literally, I can be working with a client who has been dealing with some kind of significant trauma in talk therapy for months or years. And we have an hour and a half together. And we go through this whole shamanic journey and ritual around soul retrieval. There was a traumatic event. There was a soul loss that occurred in the past. We travel back. We recover the lost soul part. We bring it home. We have this whole grand adventure in the meantime, in the hour and a half shamanic journey. And darn it, if it's not healed, taken care of, just like that. Yeah. And it's because they weren't approaching the quote unquote problem from this ordinary, limited point of view. They approached their quote unquote problem from a much more expanded point of view, much, much larger understanding of self and the nature of reality. And then instead of, I'm describing the motion I'm making with my hands. So instead of coming at it like from this very narrow, like point A to point B, I'm going to solve this problem. They come at it from this super expansive, like embracing, like my arms are making a big shape around the problem, like hugging it. And then it's tended to.
Yeah.
And is that not exactly what we do in movies?
Yeah. It's like, you know, the description of the hero's journey is going through all of these very essential stages because it's massaging the individual's perspective or perception in that stage, right? And so if a movie was like point A to point B, you know, like, oh, I'll just walk from this room into that room. Okay, the movie's over. Like, that would be silly. It's pointless, right? Because it just doesn't work that way, right? Humans have to go through a process, right? This is why people take psychedelics, you know, and there's this famous book about psychedelics, How to Change Your Mind. Because if changing your mind was just walking from one door into another, you wouldn't need psychedelics. You wouldn't need spaces like this, which is not using psychedelics. This is purely through the story process.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll wrap up this little conversation by proposing that movies are the modern equivalent of the campfire story, like the traditional story that we've told as humans around the campfire for for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, that's the ritual that we are designed to experience. And also, unfortunately, this is what Hollywood is capitalizing on, that innate human desire and knowledge of that ritual, and feeding us stories that are not necessarily useful or helping us. And so then we end up vulnerably going to a movie theater to have some benefit, and then we can be tricked into experiencing a film that doesn't necessarily benefit us and might harm us, plus it costs money, right? So it really damages, in my perspective, the film industry, you know, when we keep exploiting people's need for these types of experiences. And in a space like this, it's what Sarah is describing is it's specifically designed to benefit them. It's not over until it benefits them.
Right. And actually, a lot of people come to me with a lot of fear of the non-ordinary realms, of the spirit realm, because there's been this perception that it's a place where there's no control, where you're not safe, where there's all these scary things and demons and all of this stuff. And so again, gosh, it's like on a collective level, we've been programmed to be servants to whatever the dominant story is that's being told.
Absolutely,
It's like we've been trained to just receive and absorb what story is being told, you know, whether it's in a movie or, you know, all the things. And so if we're in that reactive kind of victim standpoint, then of course it's terrifying to engage with the unknown, to engage with, and then so what I'm talking about in my work is, again, how people develop the capacity and the power and the will to realize that they are not just reacting to everything around them. They're actually creating their reality. And then what you're saying is like, we're not just unconscious, like terrified moviegoers that, you know, want to eat popcorn and just absorb whatever's being shown to us. There's a viewer, there's a moviegoer that's like waking up into themselves more and more, that wants to participate in the stories being told to them and engage with it.
Yeah, participate emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And I think Hollywood, to be honest, you know, the film industry is afraid to raise its standards because we know once you raise the standards, you can't go back, right? And if people are exposed to like, oh, this is what a real story is, they're not going to fall for the same old stuff again. And what used to work is not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what I'm excited for. And that's the, you know, I think it's inevitable. And so we might as well, you know, do it on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an exciting time in the industry of film and the participatory story making.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Story making that is engaging us at all levels, and it's not just, you know, cheap tricks and cheap jokes and cheap thrills, but it's genuinely in service to the viewer in a way that has integrity and vulnerability and a type of force. What I mean by that is a really precise intent on where we're going, right? Because a level 1 movie in the LUCID system is not going anywhere. It's just a distraction. It's just doing stuff, right? But if we're actually going to a different place, spiritually, emotionally, that is what creates the service.
Yeah. And just to ground this for folks, practically one way I've heard you talk about this is the integration, the fusion of the gaming industry and the film industry.
Yeah.
They're coming together.
Yeah. And that's a different video, you know.
That is a different.
Yeah. We have a whole framework for what that's going to look like. That's like the future of filmmaking. So yeah, we'll get there too.
Yeah. But I wanted to mention this here because it is directly related to our conversation.
Yeah.
And again, the more and more people I work with that are waking up into themselves as creators and participators in their reality, that's exactly the type of consumer that's going to have that demand on the gaming / film industry.
Yeah.
For them to be meaningful and stimulating stories that they participate in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See? Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. There's a precipice we're getting to technologically, emotionally, evolutionarily. There's a place we're getting to that everything we've ever done before is kind of getting thrown out the window. And we have to start from scratch, and we have to start with new approaches, new systems, new thinking, and a new level of integrity that we as a species have never had before. And so being able to make all that possible always starts with the individual and what standards are we willing and ready to raise for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Joshua. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.